Hello! So, first of all, a massive thank you to Hype for sending me this camera. It seems really good. It's an Insta360 Luna. It's very similar, it's like a competitor to these DJI Osmo Pockets, which most people say, wow, that's the best looking camera you've got in terms of picture quality. So, that's that. So, big thank you to him for sending this. Don't forget to like the stream, subscribe, and all that, because if I don't say that, people won't do it. Right, so what I wanted to talk about today, because again we're in another bit of a heat wave, is why AC is so uncommon in Europe and why that should be changed. And this is one of those subjects where loads of people don't really know what they're talking about when they weigh in on it. I only kind of know what I'm talking about because I've, lived in a country that doesn't have very good AC adaptation for years. And, I've spent enough time actually looking up the real reasons, not that, like, X politician won't let you have it, or, like, people can't afford it, or whatever else. So, historically, if we start from the beginning, the reason AC wasn't as common in lots of bits of Europe was that basically it didn't get as hot as a lot of places in America. So you had obviously the thing where people just didn't really need it and they used passive cooling. So, in the hotter countries in Europe, you had like whitewashed buildings that were quite thick stone or brick, and then, small windows and that. So the houses were designed to keep the heat out. When I went to Warwick Castle the other day, the funny thing with that is that, yeah, even on a really hot day, sometimes when you go in those stone buildings without any kind of air conditioning or whatever, the buildings are, really, really cool and nice. So that's quite a nice thing. So that does actually work surprisingly well, but the problem is, as everything keeps getting hotter, that only goes so far. And the problem is, obviously, in Northern Europe, so say like where I am in the UK, or, bits of France and whatever, the houses weren't designed like that. They were designed basically for, much colder winters. So the houses in the UK and other places were designed to really trap the heat in. They were designed that, you'd have mostly cold weather most of the year. So what the houses had to do was trap the heat inside, and then you'd be able to basically, not freeze to death. They were designed to basically keep you warm, the houses. Now that causes a bit of problem when everything heats up, and then you trap the heat when the heat gets hotter and hotter. So obviously, yeah, to begin with, we've got the problem of how the houses and everything were designed. So a lot of people will then say, well, why can't you simply install AC? Well, the problem is that with a lot of European-style homes, they're not built around a central air system that makes AC effective. Because in a lot of American homes, you've got essentially like an air duct style installation where you have your central AC unit, your heat pump type thing, and then that can supply several rooms in the house from ducting or, like little concrete crawl spaces or however it's done. The problem is, obviously, like I was saying, in the UK and lots of the things, is the houses were never designed with that. So you then have to, if you want to install AC properly, you have to do a lot more additional, like, installations. And again, in a house like this, you'd have to either have big ducting put around the ceiling in every room, and the ceiling probably wouldn't support the weight of that. There's not enough room under the floorboards in this house, hence why, like I've said, the best you can do really in a house like this is have a portable air conditioner that I know people complain about, but again, better than nothing, that you can move to the room you're in and vent it out a window that way or whatever. That's the best you're really going to manage sort of around here. So like I said, that's one of the problems with that. So like I said, I've already spoken about the heating sort of problem of, houses here designed to trap the heat, not let the heat out. Now, another problem is that you're seeing in a few places is that because lots of the buildings, if they're old and kind of, nice, they're classed as listed buildings, historical buildings that you shouldn't be allowed to just knock down and tamper with, which is good because you don't want people destroying history like that, even our politicians love destroying the history of our country. But, the point is that the buildings are designed so, well, not the buildings, but the regulations are designed that, like, say, big external AC units similar to the US ones, because that would require a lot of modification to the brickwork or the stonework on the buildings or whatever. They've designed them like that, so the rules, so basically you can't screw up the building basically and do that. So I kind of understand that, but that is causing problems for people. Now, you've also got all of the things to do with like energy policies and the green policies and things like this. So basically why this causes massive issues is that, now, when I was speaking to one of my friends about this, he did seem to know some of the science. He says there is a legit thing to this in a way where you don't want the air conditioners that use the really bad refrigerants that are, very bad for the ozone and stuff like that, that was banned in fridges and freezers years ago. That makes a lot of sense, so that I can understand. But yeah, the problem is with some of the politicians, it's, oh, aircon uses a lot of electricity. Well, yeah, but so what? If you were making the energy in a renewable way or whatever, that doesn't really matter. And I've also seen the stupid thing of, well, because aircon also puts out heat as well as cooling the room, the heat is then going to global warm the Earth even faster and stuff like that. The problem is we're in a shit situation now, and you can't just say, oh, well, it's bad, so nobody can have AC. Because here's where there's a big problem, is if you look at the heat death rates. So heat death comparisons. Europe, in major recent heat waves, estimates are high. For summer 2022, studies attributed 61,000 to 70,000 heat-related deaths across Europe. Similar figures for 2024, 63,000, and lower for 2023, 51,000, with annual averages in the tens of thousands during hot years. Now, but the reason that's bad is if you look up compared to the US, where, like I said, something like 80% of homes have aircon. Official CDC figures show 1,000 to 2,400 direct heat-related deaths per year in recent data. For example, 2,300 in 2023. Broader excess death modelling estimates 6,100 to 6,500 annually on average. The US population is roughly half of Europe, amplifying the gap. So yeah, it shouldn't be anywhere near as bad as it is in Europe. But, you know, so it should be considered kind of a public health emergency that you really need to start thinking about letting people put AC in houses and whatever else. Like I said, with AC, there is the problem that if you do want it and, you know, you don't mind paying for it, like I said, like I did, even though it's not a particularly good unit, there is the problem now that so many people want it, there's not enough supply to meet demand. So again, if you want to buy AC now, what you have to do is basically buy it in the winter when nobody's thinking of it, and then you've got it ready for the summer. Whereas if you try and buy AC or fans or whatever now in the summer, they're all sold out because everybody suddenly wants them and people are scalping them, which is great. Because again, an example with this where, again, I don't really get the boomery thing of back in my day we didn't need AC, is nearly anybody, if the AC breaks in their car, because basically all cars and vans and trucks in the UK, lorries, have AC in them, as long as they're not really, really cheap budget models. Most people, if the AC breaks, and like when it's happened to me and other people I know, if the AC breaks during the summer, you book your car in a garage to have it fixed within a couple of days because, you know, being in a hot car in the summer is pretty much unbearable. So people are, for their car, know that the AC is a priority. But the idea of buying it for your house as opposed to, you know, like a new games console or something like that, people are like, oh, I can't afford that expense, is very, very bizarre to me. So like I said, I think we are going to see it change, but I think you are going to get stubborn politicians and idiots try and say, you know, well, having 50,000 people die from heat stroke a year is fine because at least it's better for the environment or something like that. But yeah, so there you go. That's more of a conclusive reason that the UK doesn't really have AC and stuff like that. Right, and now I need to just figure out how to stop the video on this new camera because it's gone into power saver mode. So I guess I'm going to press that, and we'll see if there's my first 8K video on YouTube and if it plays alright.